Hi. Hi, I am Ann Spicer, and I'm a chiropractor at Northwestern Health Sciences University at the Bloomington Clinic. And my practice is mostly pregnant women and children. And so I'm here to talk to you today about healthy snacks for kids. Of course, these are snacks that I eat myself, so they're good for adults as well. But let's go ahead and look at some of the snacks. Sometimes it's just about getting new ideas on your snacks. So I'm going to bring that up for you, and we'll take a peek at what options there might be. All right. And bear with me because I am going to start out with what kids need as opposed to what adults need. So there's going to be a little bit of a difference. All of us need a rainbow of foods every day. As my kids were growing up, I always told them every color every day, and that does not mean Skittles. So try to get a variety of foods in your diet, a variety of colors. That better ensures that you're getting all the nutrients that you and your family need for healthy bodies. Fats are very important. We've gone through a phase of fats being evil, where the diets were more low fat and no fat. And we come to understand now how important fats are for heart health, for brain health, for the nervous system. Fats are critical. The type of fat is what's important. So we want to get healthy fats through nuts, seeds, whole dairy products, as long as they're from organic, pasture-raised animals. Similarly with the meat and egg products. And deep sea fish have more fat in them. Mackerel, salmon, even sardines are good for fat content. And proteins. So here's something else is proteins. Again, we want those healthy, natural proteins that come in a healthy animal. So they tend to be pasture raised or deep sea. Nuts and legumes also are a protein. And protein gives us long lasting energy. We need more energy to get through our day. And what we find with children is that they are carb cravers. Why are they carb cravers? They are carb cravers because they know that that gives them quick energy. Grain products convert quickly to sugars in the body. That's why kids are sugar addicts as well. So what we want to do for ourselves and our kids to move away from some of those sugary foods is to give ourselves long-lasting energy with proteins. So children are going to need 30+% proteins in their diet, where an adult is probably closer to 20. And healthy fats in the child's diet is going to be 35 to 40%. Again, adults are going to be a little bit lower than that. And notice in my overall of what kids need is we don't have those carbohydrates. Part of the reason for that is that we get plenty of it in our diet, but you can also get carbohydrate through your vegetables. So really putting your focus more on the veggies, fats, and proteins is going to give you typically plenty of carbohydrate, but we eat carbohydrates anyway. All right, and so I'm starting with veggies. Don't turn off yet. You're going to tell me, oh, but my child doesn't like vegetables. So first things first here. What we eat is as much about look and smell and texture as it is about taste. So giving your child a variety of colors is appealing. Giving them a variety of textures, they can find what textures they like and don't like. And children like to dip things. So the more dips you have, the better. And this is great because the fat-soluble vitamins that are common in vegetables need fat in a dip. So what kinds of dips can we use? We'll talk about that in a second, and I'll give you some recipes for dips. But one of the favorite things that I use for kids, one of my patient mamas shared this with me years ago, and I just think it's absolutely brilliant, is telling your child, I wonder if today is the day you're going to like blank, whatever that food might be. Mushrooms, tomatoes. Do you remember as a child that you didn't like a particular food that you now like or maybe even love? What we know is that it takes approximately 10 separate exposures to a food before we decide if we like it or not. By saying, I wonder if today is the day you're going to like X, gives the child the permission to try it, the permission not to like it, and the understanding that it might change at a later date. So it's worth trying again, right? So we'll work with our children and find where their texture preference lies, where their taste preference lies, and try it again later, or in different forms. Maybe they like it cooked but not raw. So you try different things. So these are not, obviously, these snacks are not all the snacks available, but I want you to look at some different options for the children. So dipping in guacamole, hummus, or tahini. So you can use those same things, guacamole, hummus, and tahini, to top different veggies. Let's try it this way. So we have variations of ants on a log here, and everybody knows the peanut butter with raisins. So how about the peanut butter? How about fire ants on a log and put craisins on them? Giving them a name and giving them a personality is sometimes helpful for children too. And then having them engage with you, have them help you. Maybe you want to put some guacamole and black beans on your celery, or even zucchini that you've carved out a little bit. Or as you see in this image, a cucumber cup. We can take slices of cucumber, take a little bit of the seed out of one end of it, and then fill it with nut butters, seed butters, hummus, guacamole, egg salad, tuna salad. If you want a little bit heartier, and this is maybe more for our teens who are really looking for something hearty and more of that protein, then maybe you want to use one of those, a chicken salad or something, fill it up. That can be tasty, visually appealing, and satisfying. So have them play with you. Even using, if you're comfortable with the dairy products, you can even spread a little goat cheese on it. Try the goat cheese with olives, different things like that. It's worth trying a variety of things. And if you want to prepare these ahead of time and just have little single serve in the fridge for your kids, take a little jar or a little container of some kind, put a little bit of the nut butter or the hummus in the bottom, sprinkle some different things in there, maybe some raisins, maybe some tomato slices, whatever it is, and then chop up little bite-sized pieces of celery and stick those into the dip. And then they can just grab that little cup out and take their own and grab whatever item is in the bottom and scoop it up, and it's ready to go. So that saves a little bit of time on the prep of actually making that log. Here's some of those dips that we've talked about now. Hummus, you can get recipes for hummus all over the place. If you want to do a smaller recipe, you can use just a cup of the chickpeas from a can. It's very easy to buy it. There's very convenient ways to buy hummus, and you can even buy it in single serve containers. If you make it at home, you can regulate what preservatives are in it and the level of salt that might be in it. So that's the only reason I would say make it at home, but it certainly is convenient to buy it. When you make it at home, again, you can try some different options for it. You can do your own garlic and rosemary hummus. You can do your own roasted red pepper hummus. So different things that you can make on your own. Those are fun. And the only unusual ingredient perhaps is the tahini, which is a sesame paste or a sesame butter. And that's found easily in any grocery nowadays. It keeps well in the refrigerator for some time, and it adds a great flavor to any of the dips. If you're making your own salad dressings, it's wonderful in salad dressings as well. Very savory taste. Lemon herb yogurt, super simple. Take a cup of the fresh, a single serve container of the fresh plain yogurt, whole fat plain yogurt. And then just add a little squeeze of lemon juice to it, maybe throw in a handful of arugula if you want it kind of a little peppery, earthy taste, or spinach, which turns it green but doesn't have a lot of taste. A drizzle of honey if the kids still are, you're trying to break that sweet habit. Give them a drizzle of honey, parsley, salt, pepper. And then guacamole is also very easy to make, and lots of good fats in the avocado. So a juice of a half a lime, a little bit of garlic grated in, smash up that avocado, salt, pepper. I like cilantro. Some people don't prefer cilantro. It has an unusual taste to them, and that's a genetic thing. It's about 10% of the population does not like cilantro. You can also add jalapeno if you like it a little spicy, or diced tomatoes or diced bell peppers, whatever you want to try in that to give them a good, fat, tasty dip for the veggies. I'm calling this veggies, but it really is a legume. And we talked about the chickpeas for hummus. So if you're doing a small batch of the hummus yourself and you're using part of a can of chickpeas, and you can use the other part to make some chickpea poppers, and try this out. They're really tasty and very fun. In using the legumes, it is actually preferable for digestion to soak your legumes overnight and then parboil them to get them soft enough to use. But a can is fine. So using cans, the only thing with cans is the lining of the cans can sometimes leach into the food, and that can be toxic to very sensitive people. So let's take our chickpeas, and we're going to rinse them and dry them. Make sure that they're nicely dried. That takes the hull off and also dries them so they get more crispy when they're in the oven, because that's the whole idea of this, is to have a crispy snack. And then we're going to coat those dried peas with oil. You can use olive oil and avocado oil, and make sure they're evenly coated but not saturated. And then we'll put those on a baking sheet in the oven at 350 for about 40-45 minutes, right? And you just watch them. I just shake my pan a little bit every 15 minutes or so to get them turned over so they get nice and golden brown all over. And then season them with your favorite seasonings. Again, this is where you invite the kids. Maybe you want to do just an Italian seasoning, a little bit salt and pepper and Italian seasoning, delicious. My favorite is sea salt and rosemary. Maybe you want to try that. You could certainly do a curry powder or even like a chili powder cumin mix. So it's a little more of that Tex-Mex flavor. But try them. And if you take a can and you have some baking sheets, you could certainly do your baking sheet of your chickpeas and then separate them into individual bowls and try different seasonings on them so the kids can try different things and see what they like. Then you're doing smaller portions of those seasonings. Rainbow chips. So who doesn't like chips, right? So we're looking at, for crispy kind of salty type snacks, the chickpea poppers and rainbow chips. These work awesome with the root vegetables, beets, carrots, parsnips. In that image there, you see those purpley blue ones. There are purple sweet potatoes, which we're going to talk about later as well. We can use that to make a bar, a dessert bar. And so using the purple sweet potatoes, there's also taro root, which is a little more of a potato-y taste. And they're delicious, but have lots of good fiber in them. And then if you are going to use zucchini, which you certainly can do, zucchini has more moisture in it. So you are going to want to bake that a little bit shorter and slower. So instead of the 400 degrees for the root vegetable, you might do a 350 to 375 for the zucchini. And it might take you 10 to 15 minutes for the zucchini. And I like the zucchini personally with Italian seasonings and a sprinkle of Parmesan cheese. Again, you can sprinkle that after they come out so they get a little more crispy a little more quickly. But we're going to just take those and thin slice them and put them on a single layer. That's sort of the challenge with this, is making sure you have a pan big enough for a single layer of these. If they're overlapped, they tend to stay moist and they're not crispy. So we really want them crispy. Spray those again with the oil, turn them partway through baking. And then how about sticking with those zucchinis? They're fresh right now in the farmers markets. They're delicious. So getting some zucchinis, slicing them into sticks, kind of like French fry type, spray them with the olive oil, roll them in some Parmesan, maybe some parsley sprinkled on the top, Italian seasonings, put them on a wire rack. That's going to make them a little bit crispier. And again, 350 for about 15 minutes. You can put them under the broiler and then turn them again under the broiler just for a couple of minutes, and that will crisp up the outside a little bit better. So I'm going to show you another way to do zucchinis. If we're on that here in the heartier snack, these our teens kind of like these because we can fill them up with pizza fillings. And I grew up calling them Canoes, but typically you'll find them as zucchini boats if you're looking online for some different recipes. I grew up camping and canoeing, so for me it's Canoes. And you just slice them the long way, take out some of the seeds, and then fill them with your favorite pizza topping. If you have like a turkey or chicken sausage, some of your favorite marinara sauce, a little bit of cheese, Italian seasonings again on the top, for 400 degrees for 45 minutes. And they don't have to be the full zucchini. You can cut them into pieces too as more of an appetizer. But the teens like those because they're nice and hearty. And that's another way to get an extra serving of veggies in without too much fight. Let's go to smoothies, and there's a lot of things we could do with smoothies. So this is one of my favorites, is a green smoothie with cucumber, green apple, green grapes, spinach, and then the liquid is coconut water. You can also use some bottled juices as your liquid. I usually stray away from those because they tend to be a concentrated fruit that's not the whole fruit. It's a juice from the fruit with added water. And so then we're only getting the fruit sugars. Now, fruits are not bad when we talk about added sugars in our diet. When I talk about added sugars, let's talk about that right now. So added sugars is what we really want to decrease in our diet and our kids' diet. If we look at a measure perhaps and say the recommended is no more than 25 grams of added sugars. Fruits don't count, so we can have fruits and that doesn't count in our 25 grams per day. But if you do read labels, so for instance, a single serving, like a 6-ounce container of a yogurt, a fruit yogurt has about that. It's probably got 25 to even 30 grams of sugar in just one single serving of yogurt. Way too much on the sugar side. So when you feed your child yogurt, get the plain full fat yogurt, you're getting your good fats in there, and then throw in some fresh fruit and maybe a tiny drizzle of honey if they need it. But typically once you have that fresh fruit in there, it gives it enough sweetness that they don't notice so much. And this is what we want. We want to move ourselves away from the sugar addiction that most Americans have and move into a lighter sugar or no sugar. So we're looking at some options for that. So using a coconut water is great because that gives you that added fat as well. And this is sweet from the apples and the grapes, but gives you the brightness of the cucumber. And again, spinach when it's raw and thrown into a smoothie doesn't taste like much. So you can certainly add it for your kids and it's not going to be offensive to them. With my kids having growing boys, they got a kick out of me serving them swamp water. And so when I made smoothies, I'd call it swamp water, and they thought that was just hilarious. So find ways to make it entertaining for them and appealing. Taking our smoothies to the next step and preparing ahead for your kids. If you have children who are old enough to make their own smoothie, you can prepackage it and make it. You can certainly do that for yourself for ease when you're serving it to your kids. Put it in bags in the refrigerator or in the freezer. And you can put all of these items in the freezer except for the liquid. And you can use that coconut water. You can also use straight water. You can use kefir, which I like, which is a fermented milk product. It's kind of between a milk and a yogurt. So it's like the Go-Gurt kind of thing. It's a runnier, but it's got the probiotics in it. So it's got a little bit of that fermentation and probiotic in there. And then throw in some greens of any kind. And those also sit in the freezer well. So if you just put all these fruits and veggies in the freezer, you can dump that right into your blender, add the liquid, and it'll blend up and be a really nice treat. Okay. So let's take our smoothie again, and we're going to move that smoothie into a popsicle. So you can pour it into a little paper cup. Here they've used kind of recycled yogurt cups, and then put a spoon down the middle of it and freeze it So anything you make into a smoothie, you can make into a popsicle. The hard part is the waiting part. How long does it take to freeze? So if your children are helping you to make these smoothies and telling you what they'd like, what flavors they want to try together, and maybe you want to pop some whole berries in there so they can see blueberries or little corners of the strawberries in their popsicle, that's great. And then they just need to be patient until it freezes. And then fruit kebabs. So using those same fruits that you would use for your smoothies. And the fruits that freeze quite well are bananas, grapes, and berries. You can drizzle some of that whole fat yogurt, plain yogurt over the top, even mixed with a little bit of honey. It makes a nice drizzle, and it doesn't take very much to add a good flavor to those berries and bananas and grapes. When they're frozen, they're wonderful for a hot summer treat, or instead of an ice cream, they are great. You can drizzle them with melted chocolate chips. And as you see with the bananas in the bottom, bananas freeze really well and keep their color really well when they freeze. And we can dip those in a full fat yogurt or in a chocolate. And when we dip them in a dark chocolate, always use the dark chocolate. And that you can sprinkle with coconut, crushed nuts. You can drizzle it with a nut or a seed butter. Also, one of the things that is just yummy is crushing up some freeze-dried berries and then rolling the bananas with that chocolate cover or the yogurt cover in a freeze-dried banana, and then put that in the freezer until they firm up. And then these are a quick and easy snack or treat for the kids. They can just reach in the freezer, grab a frozen banana, and it feels like a really special thing, and they're still getting that fiber from the banana. They're getting less of the added sugars in their day. And if we add in the nuts and the coconut, we're getting a little bit more of the fats as well. So we're trying to move away from that sugar, but that doesn't mean we'd want to deprive ourselves or our kids. So using a little bit of the sweets and there, a little bit of chocolate chip or a little dip of chocolate, a drizzle, can be very helpful in making us not feel deprived, but still giving us a nice treat and not overloading with the sugar. So taking some apple slices, slicing them, and cutting out the center, as you can see on that left side, cut out the center in a fun shape, makes it more appealing to eat. Spread with the nut or seed butter in the middle. Maybe you want it open-faced and you can top it with some things, whether it's seeds or nuts, or seeds and nuts. Maybe a few of the mini chocolate chips, just to give you that special taste treat. Fruit leathers. We can actually take our smoothies and use these for fruit leathers if they're all the fruit itself. So in this way, applesauce and berries work great together. Applesauce is kind of the basis that I've always used for the fruit leather, and then you can put other things in it. Berries of any kind work really well. Pureed peach works great, and as we get into peach season here, the peach works great, and it gives you more of that orangey color as opposed to the redder, purplier color with the berries. And mango. Try a mango. It's delicious. And if you want to really stretch, maybe you do mango with a little bit of ginger. Take some dried ginger and sprinkle it in. And that gives you almost a spicy, but a real different kind of a savory taste to it. If you're putting in the lemon juice, then that helps to maintain the color of the fruit, but also it brightens up that taste a little bit. Puree it in the blender, pour it over a parchment-lined baking sheet. And if you don't have a dehydrator, which I've never had, I always use my oven. It takes a long time. So you just cook it as low as you can, 140 degrees approximately, for about 6 hours. And you got to keep checking it. After 4 hours, I usually recommend that you check it every 30 minutes. What you want is a little bit shiny and a little bit sticky, but not where it comes off wet at all on your finger. You don't want to feel like it's damp or wet. But so you just wait with that. You just take your time. Once it's cool, you can cut it with scissors, or a pizza cutter works really nice. And then happy eating. Fruit gummies are another thing that we can do with the same way we did the fruit leathers. So in this case, we're going to add a little more water. So you thin it out a little bit more, and then you sprinkle gelatin on top. So you want to warm it up, with that water in it, and then sprinkle some gelatin on the top. I use a grass-fed beef, but you can also use a grass-fed pork if that's not objectionable. And then you just sprinkle that gelatin on top. It takes about 5 tablespoons of the natural gelatin or collagen to set up into a gummy. And then let that sit on top, the gelatin sit on top of your fruit water mix for maybe 3 to 5 minutes before you whisk it all together until it fully incorporates. And then you can pour it in a pan like you would Jell-O, about a 9-inch pan. Let it firm up in the fridge, which might take 3 hours. And then you can cut it out into shapes if you wish, or just cut cubes from the pan. Now we get into some of the treat things. Instead of doing fruits and vegetables, which can be definitely treats, as we saw with the chocolate dip bananas. But now these are considered more treats, even though the breakfast cookie is called a cookie. To me, it's not terribly a cookie, but it looks like a cookie, so it might disappoint your kids if they're looking for a really sweet chocolate chip type cookie. So you can call it what you want. You can shape it into bars and maybe call it a breakfast bar. But these are what I make with mashed bananas and coconut oil for that good fat, oats and almond meal, again, for a little more fat and fiber. And then season it. I usually put cinnamon and cardamom in it. You can put some nutmeg in there. In the fall months, maybe you want to use a pumpkin pie spice. Give it some different flavors along the way. And then chopped walnuts for more of the fat. You might want to grind it if your kids don't prefer nuts. If you ground it in there, almost like that almond meal. And then you could do a little bit more of the walnut meal, or just finely chopped enough that they don't notice it. And then raisins. Again, when we're trying to wean, you might want to wean with just a little bit of chocolate chips, like the mini chips, put a few of those in there. And then we'll roll those into balls, flatten them a little bit, and let them bake away. And they're delicious. Again, you can put these in single serving packages, wrap them in a little parchment, and put those in the freezer, and the kids can just grab and go with those as well. Chocolate zucchini muffins. These are a treat. They're like a cupcake, but they're not full of the sugars that many cupcakes are. We're going to use the coconut flour for fiber and fat, and cocoa powder. I like the dark cocoa powder, but you can use a milk chocolate powder as well, or it's just a lower level of cocoa or cacao. And again, I like cinnamon in that. You can put a little bit of nutmeg in there, gives it an extra boost of flavor. And well, I'm not going to go there. Some people will actually put like an ancho chili powder in there. This is a more adult version, so it's got kind of that chocolate spice, more like a mole, if you will. And then a mashed banana, eggs, a drip of syrup. So that's about 3 tablespoons of the syrup. And that's for your 12 muffins or cupcakes. So that's for your 12. So you're really not getting a lot of sugar in each one. And then using, again, a little bit of the mini chocolate chips, you can mix those right in or just sprinkle a few on top. And that gives that little taste of that chocolate sugar, but is not overwhelming in the sugar content. Grating up the zucchini. So if it grates into long strings, you might want to chop that up a little bit so the kids aren't finding long strings of green if green is a problem for your kids. So that might help you in disguising that healthy zucchini, which we're doing, again, another dose of our veggies. Here's our purple sweet potato bars. Simple, simple, simple. Bake a sweet potato in your oven. All you need to do is poke a hole in it to let the steam out and bake it at 350 for an hour, hour and 15, depending on the size of your potato. And then once it's cooled, the skin peels right off, and you'll mix that with a 1/2 cup of Nutter seed butter and coconut manna, also called coconut butter, or coconut butter called coconut manna. This might be a little bit trickier to find, but most of your grocery stores will have this. If not at the grocery, in their natural section, then you might need to go to an upscale grocery store or a Whole Foods store. And then you melt the nut butter and the coconut butter together in a double boiler. So that means it has to be just kind of gently melted. What if you don't have a double boiler? Then just take a heat-safe bowl and put it over the top of a pan that's got water in it and boil that and put your butters inside it and just take a spatula, spoon, and slowly mix those until they melt down. Add them to your sweet potato, spread them out in a pan, and bake them at 350 for about 30 minutes or so until it comes out, a toothpick comes out clean. Some people will turn these into brownies, so they make a purple sweet potato brownie by adding cocoa powder. And we've had a few things, so I've given you like the breakfast cookies you can add chocolate to, and the muffins or cupcakes you can add chocolate to, and I've got my next and final one is going to be chocolate as well. So I like that this is a little bit different. And these are, again, they give you an extra veggie serving. The sweet potato is starchy, so it feels good. It feels like that carb hit that the kids like. And it's got lots of fiber in it. And when we add our butters, then it's got that fat as well. And avocado chocolate mousse. This is probably my favorite treat. So I use full fat coconut milk in a can, so canned coconut milk, and then I use as much of the fatty portion of it as I can get. So usually with a can of coconut milk, you'll get part of it is that dense fat cream type, and then you get some of the liquid. The more liquid that you use, the more pudding it gets, and the more of the firmer cream part of it that you use, the more mousse it gets. It can get real fluffy, like a mousse. And so I will put all of these ingredients in a blender and blend them up till it's nice and fluffy and pure so that you don't have chunks of avocado. And for those of you that don't like avocado, you will not taste it in here. I've served this to many people without telling them what was in it. And I have had many people say, I don't like avocados, but I didn't taste it. So you go ahead and try this. And again, it's got about 2 tablespoons of honey in a batch, and it's just delicious. It takes about 3 hours to set in an oven. So in a refrigerator, don't put it in the oven. In the refrigerator for 3 hours, it'll firm up and get that mousse flavor. I'll top that with berries. Strawberries is my favorite, as in the image, but any kind of berry is wonderful with this chocolate mousse. And so you've kind of gotten some ideas of ways to transition. So looking at colors and textures and other kinds of appeal with things that we do with them, with cookie cutters, shapes, and toppings, and engaging your kids. I recommend that you take your kids to the grocery store with you as well and let them pick out a new fruit or a new vegetable. I don't know what this is. Let's try it. So you bring that new fruit or vegetable home, look on the internet for ways to prepare it, have them help you with cooking it and preparing it and tasting it. That can also just heighten their imagination over food and lets them have that desire to experience a little broader food palette. And again, remember that it takes 10 exposures for them to decide, for all of us to decide if we really like a food or not. So my challenge for you, moms and dads, is to try a food that you did not like as a kid and see if you like it now. And remember that just because you don't like a food does not mean that your child won't like it. And just because they didn't like it once doesn't mean they still won't like it. And just because you love a food doesn't mean your child will like it yet. And so we'll give them a chance to experience those foods as they grow and eat healthy. So if you have any questions or comments, please direct them to bncc@nwhealth.edu, and we'll get you those answers you need. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.